the last few years, a number of Canadian producers have earned themselves a strong position in the Premier League of techno and house music. Steaming ahead are Cobblestone Jazz. As an act that over time has grown into a quartet that knows exactly how to work wonders with their live set, improvisation and interaction within the band play a predominant role. This can also be seen in their studio work, where a track can sometimes end up being over 10 minutes long because the four of them got caught up in a jamming session. At the moment, they're currently working on their new album, which is scheduled for release in 2010. A good enough reason for Slicers to pay them a visit in their studio.
Yeah, we're here in the studio doing a Cobblestone Jazz album, and we've just invited a new member who's Colin, the Mole, over here. And he was actually in the original band of Cobblestone Jazz, which is called the Modern Deep Left Quartet. We were split up for a little while, and that's how Cobblestone formed, I guess. You know, is that there was only the three of us living on the west coast of Canada for a while. Now, myself and Colin live in Berlin, so when these guys come to tour, we'll spend our time here in the studio, and from now on we're going to focus in the studio doing a Cobblestone Jazz, but it'll be the four of us. And when we play live, we'll still sometimes do three-person Cobblestone Jazz shows, but also when it's the four of us, we'll still keep it as the Modern Deep Left Quartet and present it as something a bit special. I think we're lucky that we've been all friends for a long time, and that we're all musicians that I guess kind of know how to only play a few parts. I think it's the most important thing when you're working in a group. Long hours in the studio. What are you guys doing?
Nothing. I agree with you. You're right. No, please carry on.
What's happening back here?
No, I didn't do it.
This is what happens. We end up. This is a good example exactly of what happens in the studio. Basically, when we're not writing music, we just sit around and pick on each other the whole time. Whoever's in a little bit tired of a mood, maybe someone's having not the best day, then the three other people will central in on that one person and just start poking until basically they just snap and give in, and then everybody's happy again. But usually it takes a while.
I think the best thing about working with these guys is we've got so much history together and we know each other's tendencies so well. And the contributions that each of us makes, I think, since it's more or less been the same for the span of the project, it actually becomes incrementally easier when we get together and faster because we've just got a lot of history doing it, and we're very comfortable with the process.
When we're working in the studio, a lot of the time is spent improvising, and that's kind of how we get to a point where we have the parts that we'll end up using in the final recording. Sometimes in the studio, we'll actually just hit record while we're making the parts, and we'll get to a point where we can just edit a beginning and an end out of just the jam. Or sometimes we'll jam, for half an hour or something like that, maybe longer, and then pick out the nice pieces that we've come up with. But we like to write all at the same time. So everybody's just walking around the room, picking a different synthesizer or piano or whatever, and then putting it together, And then sometimes at the end, the parts that aren't so strong, maybe we'll get rid of those. We keep the parts we like, and then if we haven't already gotten a mix just from that jam, then we'll do another final mix while we're produce it a little bit more.
In general, the way that we approach the process is that if one of us, we each trust each other so much, I think, to a degree, that if one person doesn't particularly like an element to the music or something, they'll bring it up. And in general, we can make something else in such a short amount of time. Instead of kind of bickering about whether it should be in there or not, quite often we might just say, well, let's just start again. Let's just take it from the top. And within the span of 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we might have, something else to deal with. So, yeah.
Working together, it seems like we go in there and just attack the equipment, and if it sounds good, then we try and make it sound better and hit record. I mean, the machines do all the work for us. We don't have to do anything, really, except for Dan. He's got to work his fingers, but otherwise we're pretty, we just attack. I don't know, improvising. It's simple. I don't know.
We all take our different roles. Certainly, when we're in the studio, it's probably for myself. I could say I do a lot of mixing and bass lines, synth work, a little bit of percussion here and there. Danuel, most of the time, will be doing Rhodes and vocoder work. Colin and Patty do a lot of percussion, mixing, synth work as well. But we all kind of do have our a little bit of a general idea as far as the way things come together, and we find that it works best when we stick to that a bit. So it's a bit of a formula. You could say in what we're doing, because with the amount of equipment that's in there, if we get kind of too carried away, we'll start getting lost. So it's good to focus on what we all do best.
I find actually one thing that's interesting is when we play as a quartet, when we set up on stage, we'll have Mathew and Patty on one side like this, and then I face them on this side so we can get cues and different things like this. But when we play with the MDLQ, it's kind of a battle between me and Colin's on my side as well. And so really he takes a lot of the role of melody as well. And so we find that we can sort of shift back and forth, whereas these two guys are sort of driving the bus or whatever. And it's really enjoyable. We do the same thing in the studio. A lot of the melodies come from Colin too, with turntables and stuff. But just fitting it in and not, experimenting and not necessarily being just on the home, like often we all do that though, like I'll have a chord or some sort of harmonic movement, and then Mathew will write a bass line that's not exactly following it, but making sort of counter melodies, I guess with harmony really I think of it just as melody. As I get older, when I was younger, it was more chords. But as I get older, it's more just each little melody intertwining and having, I guess I'm most happy with the melodies. It's a bunch of melodies stacked on each other. And then, you could analyze it as a progression or something. But really, I think it's more a melodic sense. And I think a lot of techno artists approach it that way as well. Even more so, maybe even more on top of it, is just sound, which I'm very attracted to, and that's why I love doing this.
Consistencies in Cobblestone sound would be the Rhodes and vocoder from Dan, some kind of analog bass, whether it be the 101 or the modular bass from Matt, and then usually elements of some sampled drums from myself and Colin, and basic drum machines, 909, 808, yeah. For the improvising in the studio and also when live is we figured out at a very early time that if something comes up new on the stage that we've never heard before, then we all start laughing and smiling and getting really excited, and people in the audience and stuff who are paying us and the promoters tend to get really excited too, because they're not they're sensitive. They understand that. And so in the studio, if we come up with something that's really kind of new to us and not something that we've sort of done a lot or heard a lot, then we tend to get excited. And if we tend to get excited, we'll push it to the end, And in a live performance, it's the same thing. If someone does something that's not in their nature, then you can see everyone else sort of lights up, and we look at each other, and there's this energy that happens, and the audience and the feeling in the room is absolutely responds to it instantly. And so I guess that's maybe some of the reason that we choose to not play a lot of music that we've written or redo it. I mean, we had a couple of hits a couple of years ago, and there's such, people love it. It's an amazing feeling playing something that people know too. And so we would redo it. We've played Dump Truck 1,000 million times. We don't play it anymore, but we've played it over the last years, many different version ways and stuff. So we do that too. But generally we're looking for the next sort of like exciting thing,
There's a new album coming, and everyone should buy it on vinyl, and they should buy it from their local record store, because the local record store is the one you should support. The internet sucks. Don't use it. It's a sewer of information, and it's ruining our world and ruining our children. Save the children. And long live vinyl. It's the only useful media in the world, or in music. It's good.